is abortion a sin? This is what I'm guided to speak on today in this one. And quite the topic, huh? This one will probably be popular. Now, I'm not going to answer that question, but instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak, and when I'm done speaking, you'll be able to come to the answer for yourself. Hopefully. So, I'm not going to answer the question. Instead, I will give you what you need to hopefully be able to answer the question for yourself. Now, this is going to be a little different. First off, I'm going to need to turn the lights off for this one. So, let's do that. What's the opposite of let there be light? Let there be darkness? Okay, let me turn off the lights. So right now, I am in complete darkness, but you can see me just a little bit because of the light from my computer. So that's why you can still kind of see me in the dark here. So before I start, how we're going to do this is I am going to give you a perspective that, let's say, it's not necessarily the perspective of a person. Now, what we know about God is that God is beyond human comprehension, far beyond whatever we can comprehend. Well, we can't even comprehend God. God is beyond human comprehension. But let's just try to understand or imagine just a little bit, maybe just a fraction of what it is that, even if it's a grain of sand in the desert, even if it's like that, let's try to view this from the perspective of God. Again, beyond human comprehension. We can't do it, but we can still try to understand just a little bit within our limited scope of understanding as humans. So that's the perspective that I'm going to be doing this in or from. we know that God is all-knowing, all-seeing, all-knowing and all-seeing. We'll just use those two for this. We know that God can see the future. God knows what happens before it happens, how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. God knows all of these things. These things are nothing for God. God knows all of it. So, with that in mind, let's look at it from a different perspective. A perspective more than what we can see as humans. So, how are we going to do this? Because I need to move from where I am right now, and if I turn, the mic isn't going to pick me up because you need to be speaking into it. Let's see if I can make something work here. Okay, so I think I figured something out here. Though I did have to change microphones for this. Yeah, I'm now holding the mic rather than using that one. I'm using another one. So what I'm going to do is I am going to turn around. Okay, so I'm turned around now, and in my hand I have a phone. So what I'm going to do with this phone is we're going to look at this phone as if it is, can you see the phone? I'm holding it in my hand here. There we go. Okay, so there's the phone in my hand, and you can see the screen right there. I have to turn it this way like that. So we're going to think of this phone as a person, and this phone is a child. This is an unborn child. So the things happen between the man and the woman, and this is immediately after that. So this phone is representative of that child, that person that will be formed. Now you might say it's not a child yet. It's not a person yet. Remember, the perspective we're looking at this from is not that of a person. We're looking at it through the perspective of being able to see and know the future. To know what's going to happen before it happens. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the light on my phone. The flashlight. And now you can see me just a little bit now. And there's the front of the phone there. And there we go. So now you see there's a lot of light coming off of this phone. And what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that along everything where the light touches. Let me turn. This will be easier if I turn. So there's our phone in my hand. There's the life. and the light being projected from it onto the wall, I want that light on the wall to represent everything of this person's life. All that light on the wall. Now, imagine there are points on the wall within the light. There are points with different things at each point. Let's say the first one is at the very left side of the wall. And at that point is the conception of this person. And God sees that. God sees the conception because God allowed the conception to happen in the first place. God's direct involvement is why it happened. God allowed it to happen, or we could say God let it happen. So that's the first point there. So God is extremely involved in this, having let it happen. So now we're going to move just a little bit from that point to another point. The formation of what is inside of that woman. It's that becoming a child. God forming that child, shaping its eyes, its head, its hands, its arms, its brain, its heart, its legs. God is shaping and forming all of that. Closely and carefully. He is forming that in His image. Now, again, we're just trying to understand a tiny bit, a fraction, a very small percentage of what it is that, how it is that God sees this. A grain of sand in the desert. We're trying to understand. So God is forming that child in this womb, and He's very hands-on as He's doing this. Now, for the person, they've only conceived. They see none of this. They know none of this. They don't experience any of this because it's only day one for them. But God can see into the future and knows what happens before it happens. So God sees all of these things even at that moment, even before it ever happens, before it ever happened. And He's forming that child carefully, taking His time to make that child in His image. And then he breathes life into that child. He gives it a heartbeat. And that child is alive. That child is filled with life. And fast forward to the day the woman gives birth. She gives birth and the child cries for the first time. And God sees that. And that's his creation. That he formed so carefully within the womb, that he made in his image, that he loves more than you'll ever know. That's his creation, being born there. The woman was the vessel. And now this child is born, and this child starts growing. God sees as this child eats for the first time, as they breathe their first breath, as they cry for the first time, as they hold on to their parents' hand for the first time, as they turn over for the first time, because babies, they have to stay on their back, as they kick as a baby, because babies like to kick when they're on their back. All of these are points along the wall. And God sees all of this. God is there for all of this. God knows all of this. It hasn't happened yet, but God knows this and sees this. And God sees as they get older. God sees as they take their first steps. He sees them as they cry. He sees as they experience disappointment for the first time. He sees as they get hurt for the first time. He sees them when they're sad. He sees their first birthday. He watches them grow. He sees as they learn how to walk for the first time, their first few steps. He sees all these things. And as he's watching all these things, he never asks anything of them. He just watches. And he loves his creation more than they'll ever know. He sees as they get older. He sees when they're scared. He sees all the hardships and struggles of their life. And again, all these things, think of them as points along the wall where the light touches each of these things as individual points. They're all scattered along the wall. all of these things where the light touches. All of these things represent the life of this person, this child, this person that has not been born as of yet, that isn't here yet from the human perspective, because it's just day one. A man and a woman were together, and this is day one. All of those things God sees and He knows. He sees as this child gets older, as they grow up, as they experience hardship. I didn't mention He sees their first smile, their first laugh. He sees the contouring of their cheeks, which He created Himself down to the tiniest atom, which He purposely put together in a very specific way and formed. As they laugh, as they cry, as they smile, He watches them as they grow, as they experience happiness, hardship, sorrow, suffering. He sees all of that, and He's with them through it all, loving them from afar. And during all that time, He never asks anything of them, not even once. He loves them regardless of whether they acknowledge Him or not. He sees as they fall in love for the first time, as they find their partner in life, their wife or their husband. He sees all those things. He sees their joys, their sorrows. He's with them through it all. And He sees that. He sees that before it has ever happened. And even if they should reject Him, even if they decide that they don't want to believe in Him, or that He doesn't exist, or that they think He's unjust or unfair, He still loves them regardless of that. And He doesn't make their life any harder, because He loves them. Now, He sees that, all of that, their entire life, everything, them falling in love, them having children, them going through these things with their own children, smiles, laughter, happiness, sorrow, suffering. He sees them when they're nervous. He sees all the moments when they're scared, when they're filled with anxiety, when they don't know what to do, when, if they believe, their faith falters. He sees all of those things, and He loves them regardless. of what they do. No. He sees from the beginning of their life to their death and beyond. Every possible outcome, every potential, every choice. He sees and knows it all before it happens. When it's just day one for the man and the woman. So God sees and knows all of that. Every single thing you can imagine about this person, God knows and sees it all. And when a person has an abortion, when a person goes through with an abortion, this is what happens. All of that is gone in an instant. So all of those things that God did and saw, all of the outcomes, the potential, the emotions, the feelings, seeing that child's, that person's, their most intimate moments, and all of the moments, every second of their life. It's all gone. Just like that. In an instant. Because that man and woman decided that they don't want a child. God allowed them to conceive. He opened up that woman's womb and allowed her to conceive. And they decided that they don't want a child. That they were going to have an abortion. That's what happens. All of that light is gone. There are no points on the wall. There's nothing being illuminated. You can't even see the wall now. But you knew. You knew that there was a wall there. And you saw all of those points along that wall. You saw each and every point. You saw each and everything. You saw it all. You saw them taking their first breath. You saw them crying for the first time. You saw them smile. You formed their hand and their heart. You watched as they got older. You saw them fall in love. You saw them when they were scared. You saw as they felt anxiety. You saw all those things. And that's all gone now. It's all gone. All of those things. Because the man and the woman decided to have an abortion. That they didn't want to have a child. And you don't harm them for it, for that decision. You don't do anything against them because you love them just as much as you love that child, that person. You don't do anything against them. I can only imagine how much pain and hurt God must feel when a couple decides to have an abortion, knowing all that. I can only imagine. It must hurt him so much.